What's going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. This video today is going to be answering another question left in the comments of another video. So before I get into it, guys, please take some time to subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't checked out my official Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture merch, today I'm rocking the Heroes Never Die t-shirt that you can find. Link is below. And if you want to know how you can support the channel via patreon.com at just $3.99 a month, that link is below as well. Let's get into this question that I have up here from a viewer, Michael Ovsinik. Okay, Michael, thank you so much for this question. This question is one that I think is on a lot of people's minds, whether they enjoy the subject or are kind of apprehensive to the subject, and that subject is variance. But before I go into it, guys, let's read what Michael wrote here. All right. Quote, what do you think about variant covers in ratios? Are they going to maintain value? My 8-year-old son loves Miles Morales, so sometimes I pick up the 1 in 10 or 1 in 25 variants for 20 or 40 bucks when they are available. Do you think if I get these slabbed, they'll be sellable down the line if he wanted to? So if his son wanted to sell them at some point. Will it be hard to differentiate them since they're not necessarily a key issue, just a rarer version of each issue? Man, again, Michael, thank you so much for this question. And I love how you broke this down, because you broke it down in a way that I don't want to say answers your own question, but that shows me that you have certain insight, or at least you implied the insight there. And that's the last thing you said, where you said since they're not necessarily a key issue, but are just rarer. And this is one thing that I talked about before. Rarity doesn't equate to value necessarily. There's a lot of things that are rare that nobody cares about, and they're worthless, right? But before we get into that, let's go back to the first part of the question. What do you think of variance? I talk about variance all the time, guys. I am not a fan of variants as a collector, in the sense that I am not willing to spend a bunch of money just because a book is a variant. I love variants if they have beautiful cover art and I can get them at cover price, right? I talk about that all the time. I love the option of, say, for DC, since they've been doing really since I've been buying the Rebirth issues, I love the A and B option. So, you know, even with Marvel, with like the connecting covers, sometimes I'll enjoy getting the connecting covers and they're the same price as the cover A. So that's how I like variants, because I like art, you know, and if one of the two books speaks to me, the art speaks more to me, I'll buy that one. It's choice. But when you're specifically talking about like incentive variants and your 1 in 25s, 1 in 50, 1 in 100s, that's a whole nother ball game, because those do command a premium price. Whether that premium price is only maybe like $9.99, $10, $20, or $50, $80, $100 plus, right? That's different. I don't go there. I've talked about this before too. There's 2 books that I purchased for more than cover price that were variants, and it was the Shattered variant, ASM 800, that was a Spider-Man 300, Amazing Spider-Man 300 cover swipe. I paid like, what, $30 for that. And then the Mayhew Venom #1 ASM 300 cover swipe that I paid like $30 for, maybe $24 as well. Those are the only 2, but I just really enjoyed the cover swipe art so much that I said, hey, why not? So if your son loves them, specifically for, you know, you take Miles Morales, for example, if your son enjoys the art, you know, and you're willing to spend a little more money, fine. If you're buying the variant, you know, the 1 in 25 variants, just because you think that they're going to have value for him in the future to flip and make some money off of, that's where I would question it. Now, let's look at retaining value. This was the next part of his question. He says, are they going to maintain value? Okay. Here's my take on this. There's all the naysayers that hate so much on variants, and I go against that. I go against that. Variants are here to stay for right now. They've been here for a long time now, and over the last 10 years, they boomed. And I don't see them slowing down anytime soon. Answering the question straight up, will they maintain value, though? That's a hit or miss. You know, you can't deny that. You can't deny that a lot of these ratio variants come out soaring. not only do they come out where the retail price is not even cover price, but there's FOMO involved, and you get an incentive variant within the first week of the release that could be pushing, over $100, or, and if it's a 9.8 CGC slab, they're selling for $250, $300. It's kind of crazy, right? And then they drop, a month later or something, they'll kind of fizzle out, and you'll see that curve start dropping down, and the fair market value will dip. We on the Comic Book Canon, we do the top 10 every week, and we see these incentive variants all the time. They hit those top 10s. I think there was just one that hit a record sale of like 150, but then dropped back down to around like 80 or something. So, it's still commanding a decent value, but that FOMO will create that bell-shaped curve, and then it'll come right back down. So, and this is short term. We're not even talking about long term here. We are talking about short term. There's a short term dip. So if there's an exclusive variant, say from like KRS or Unknown or whoever produces these incentive variants, and the standard retail is like $19.99 or $24.99 or something like that, and you don't mind paying that, and you're kind of seeing that as technically like a cover retail price for your son, so be it. If you're already looking at these books on the secondary market and they're selling for $50, $60, $70, then that's where I would be hesitant, because to me, they're not worth it in terms of retaining value. But here's the thing with long term. We don't really know. We don't really know what the long-term market is, because, variants have been around for 20 plus years, but, over the last decade or so, they've really started gaining traction. You see more and more of them now, over the last 5 years or so, you see more and more. Over the last 2 years, even, you've seen more and more. So we don't know what the long-term market is going to look like for variants. We don't. So I can't sit and tell you what the Momoko incentive 1 in 100 variant of Batman 90 whatever is going to be 10 years down the line. Even though, when it, in the first couple of weeks came out, it was selling for over $100. I can't tell you that. So when you ask, if I get these slabs, will he be able to sell them down the line if he wanted to? There's no telling, really, because we don't know, because the market is so fresh. The one thing that I would look for, this would be my advice. If he likes Miles Morales, say, and there's incentive variants of books that are already key books, like it's a first appearance or a number 1 of a new run or something like that. There's an incentive, and I don't even know, but if there's an incentive variant of Miles and Gwen's first kiss or something like that, at least there's something there to back it up. It's not just an incentive variant. It's also a key book. Even if it's a minor key, there's something to the book as well. So you take like, Venom number 3, first appearance of Noel, and you look at like the second or the third print variant cover. That has a, it's rarer because it's a smaller print run, and you even though it's a later printing, it's still the first appearance of Noel in a later printing, but you get him on the cover as well. So there's a demand for that. There is a demand for that. So you really got to ask yourself, are you getting into the variant thing just because you think that there's going to be a return on investment? Or are you getting into the variant thing because it speaks to you or really speaks to your son as a collector? That's what I would ask. But here's the thing to those naysayers, okay, that hate on variants and say the variants are ruining the market, they're not going to hold value. First off, we don't know if they're going to hold value. Just because they do this and they have ebb and flow and they dip some, doesn't mean that they're going to hold value. It just means the FOMO makes that value spike up so high, and then it still drops. But it might drop to a threshold, and it may still hold a decent value. But here's the thing that I say to those that say variants are ruining the hobby. Let me tell you something right now. They talk about burnout. And look, burnout's real. But let me tell you something. When somebody buys let's use electronics for example. Somebody buys a new computer or a phone. or a TV, whatever the case may be. When you buy it, you know that it's going to diminish in value. It's not going to retain that value, okay? But people jump on it. I mean, look at the PlayStation 5. You know, right now it's rare on the market. There's a scarcity because they haven't produced enough to keep up with demand. And people are going on eBay selling them for $800 to $1,000, over 2 times what you could get retail. And people are buying them at that price, knowing that in a couple years, if you get bored of it and you want to buy the new system, that you're not going to be able to get much for that system. It's going to be used. The value of that item as a used item is going to be diminished. Okay. I see a lot of people that collect variants and that are willing to spend the money on variants. They're not just blowing that money just because they think that they're going to get a return on investment. I guarantee you a lot of people are into variants and they understand the risk that they take and that the value might diminish over time. That's okay for a lot of people. Therefore, the demand for variants doesn't need to only exist to satisfy collectors that are looking to either flip or really see a return on investment. I hope that makes sense. I know for a fact that there are collectors out there that know that they're taking a risk, that are dishing this money out for these incentive variants, and a few months from now, the price that they paid for, they may only be able to get half of that if they put it on the secondary market. All right, and I just brought this up. Midtown had a huge 75% off sale a couple weeks ago, and most of the stuff was incentive variants. And I said I think they might hike the prices up like above market value just to see if they sell, and then they'll discount them. So, but yeah, I mean, look, you can't just look at things being a hit in the market just because it has a return on investment, right? And I don't think a lot of people would understand that. You know, there's probably people watching me right now that are saying you're crazy. It's just the flippers that are buying the variants and manipulating the market and saying that you need to have this because it's rare and all this stuff. But no, that's not true. I personally know people that just love variants, and they love getting those variants and sending them into CGC just to try to get that high grade and encapsulate it because they love the artwork. There's people that chase artists, you know. There's people that chase these variants and then want to go spend even more money to send the books out to the CGC exclusive signature signings, right? Because that's how they collect. And they're probably not even thinking what that book's going to be worth 10 to 20 years down the line. They want it because it speaks to them and how they collect as a collector. So I hope that answers that. I will touch on now going back into the rarity aspect and really hitting on the fact that, yes, if you're looking at variants as something that is going to possibly bring you a return on investment, you have to understand that rarity doesn't equate to being valuable. Okay, there's a lot of things that are rare, that are junk, that nobody cares about. Okay, scarcity doesn't equate equally to rarity either. They are two different things. Sometimes things that are rare can also be scarce, but sometimes things that are scarce might not be necessarily rare. And I'll give you an example. A print with a high print run. Amazing Spider-Man number 300. I believe the print run of Amazing Spider-Man 300 was around 300,000, if I remember off the top of my head. It wasn't in the millions. It wasn't to that point yet. But that's a high print run, especially compared to the print run of today's books. But guess what? The value of that book is shooting through the roof. Why? Because it's scarce on the market. Okay? It's not rare. It's scarce on the market because people are buying them and holding on to them, so there's less available on the market, and I talk about that all the time. Okay? There could be a 1 in 100 incentive variant that has, say, 5,000 copies printed, but there could be 400, 985 on the market because nobody cares about it. There could be a variant with 500 issues printed, but if nobody wants to buy those 500 issues, it's going to be worthless. Okay? So a 500 print book is rare, but if nobody is demanding those 500 copies, that book is going to be worthless because nobody's going to be willing to put any money down to buy it. So you have to really understand that rarity doesn't equal value. All right. So again, on my closing thoughts here on variants. Overall, I think variants are a very positive thing for this hobby right now. Absolutely. It's just like a grocery store or any type of store having one product on the shelves that's selling. Okay. For the comic book industry, think of the comic book industry as this, hypothetical marketplace, right? And, on the shelves, we have back issues, we have key books, we have new issues, we have trade paperbacks, we have young readers, and then we have variants. We have all these different things that are on the shelves. And when we go to the grocery store, we get our cart and it's like, what do we want to cook for dinner? What type of food do we like? Some people don't go to the Mexican food aisle because they don't like Mexican food. I go to the Mexican food aisle because I love Mexican food. I hate potatoes. I know, blasphemy, right? I don't really like potatoes. So I'm not going to the potato aisle. But there's other people that are going to the potato aisle, right? It's the same with the comic book industry. There's a high demand for variants, and they're being moved off the shelf, even if not everyone is going to that same shelf to buy them. Okay? Because we all like different things. The burnout, it's not there. Other people are burnt out, and I'm not going to get into that in this video, but there's burnout with other things, if you ask me. And I'm not going to get into that in this video. But the burnout is not there when it comes to variants because the market is booming. Okay? I'm not saying that certain individuals don't get burnt out on it. And look, a lot of collectors they're like moving pieces. Like they'll change what they're collecting from one moment to the next. Oh, I may collect variants for a year or for a few months. And then I want to go collect like blue chip keys or only like, Bronze Age back issues or something. Or I only want to collect independents. I want to get away from the superhero genre for a minute and things like that. Ultimately, variants are good for the hobby. It's bringing in money to the publishers. It's helping bring in money to the LCSs. And I know there's a lot of distribution, issues that we could get into. There's always two sides of a coin, but I'm not going to get into all that. But Michael, for you and your specific situation, being that it's your son, really understand what your son desires about the hobby. He may love Miles Morales, but if he's not worried about trying to, make big money or flip a book right now, I would just, if you had your option to buy a variant or just buy him a stack of some other Miles books that he doesn't have yet, I'd probably buy the stack of some Miles books. But look, if you do enough research and you say, okay, I think the risk is worth it to buy this book, this variant book, and send it to CGC and get it slabbed. I want to do that for my son so he has something, that's encapsulated that could be something that he can either cherish in the future or, sell and try to make a profit off of. Just do your research, do your homework, understand what your son wants and understand what you want as a collector, and just make sure that whenever you make that decision, it's a sound decision that you feel comfortable with. So guys, that's my video today. I hope I answered your question, Michael, and I hope I answered some questions and pondering thoughts for some of you all out there that may be huge fans of variants, or maybe those that are on the fence about variants and aren't really into variants and may think that they're a negative thing. If you guys have any other questions or concerns or whatever it may be regarding the variant issue, please leave them below. Hey, I could take some of your guys' comments and do more videos on the subject and keep talking about this. Because, like I said, it's very important one way or the other to a lot of us. So, All right, guys, that's it for today. Leave your thoughts below if you aren't subscribed to the channel. Please do so. And until next time.